A fig is not a fruit. I know, great start. Already betrayal. A fig looks like a fruit. It sits there in the grocery store, acting innocent, soft purple, full of tiny, crunchy bits, pretending to be a normal member of society. But biologically, a fig is more like a locked room. A sweet little biological panic room. And inside that room, there are flowers, secret tunnels, trapped insects, desperate mothers, wingless sons, pollen, death, and one of the strangest family businesses in nature. So if you thought a fig was just a fruit, congratulations. You were living in the safe version of reality. Let's open the fig carefully. Because what you call a fig is actually a syconium, which is a fancy word for nature folded a flower bouquet inside out and sealed it shut. Most fruits have flowers on the outside first. You see the flower gets pollinated, and later you get the fruit. Simple, respectable, very normal plant behavior. The fig tree looked at that system and said, what if the flowers were inside a tiny edible bunker? So inside every real fig structure, there are hundreds of microscopic flowers lining the inner walls, a secret garden. But there is a problem. If your flowers are locked inside a little pod, normal pollinators can't reach them. Bees can't walk in like, hello, I'm here for the flowers. Butterflies can't casually land on them. The flowers are hidden, sealed away, protected from the world, which is great. Except now the fig has invented a security system so good that nobody can deliver the mail. So nature needed a solution. And because nature is apparently run by a committee of sleep-deprived goblins, the solution was a tiny wasp. Not a big, scary wasp. Not the kind that ruins your picnic and makes everyone suddenly very athletic. A fig wasp is tiny, ridiculously tiny, small enough to crawl into the fig through a narrow little entrance called the ostiole. The ostiole is basically the fig's front door, except the door is more like a biological cheese grater. The female wasp finds the fig, lands on it, and starts squeezing herself through this tiny opening, and this is not a graceful entrance. This is not a red carpet moment. She often loses her wings, she can lose her antenna. She enters the fig like someone trying to move a sofa through a bathroom window. And once she is inside, there is usually no going back. Imagine being born for one mission, flying through the world, finding the correct sealed flower cave, forcing yourself inside, breaking your flight equipment on the way in, and realizing your retirement plan is now die in the produce section. But for the wasp, this is not failure. This is the job. Inside the fig, she does two things. She lays eggs, if she has entered the right kind of fig, and she pollinates the tiny internal flowers with pollen she carried from the fig where she was born. This is the deal. The fig gives the wasp's babies a nursery. The wasp gives the fig pollination. A beautiful partnership, a tiny tragedy, with benefits. But this is where it gets more complicated, because not every fig is the same. Some figs are basically nurseries. The wasp can lay her eggs inside certain flowers, and her larvae can grow there. Other figs are more like biological traps. The wasp enters, pollinates the flowers, but cannot successfully lay eggs because the flower structures are too long for her. So she still helps the fig make seeds, but she gets no children out of the deal. Nature looked at this tiny insect and said, thank you for your service. Please enjoy the wall. This is the part where the fig stops being a fruit and starts sounding like a contract written by a plant lawyer. And somehow, this whole system works. Inside the nursery fig, the eggs hatch. The baby wasps grow hidden inside the fig's flowers, like the world's smallest apartment complex, except every apartment is also a womb and the building is edible. Then the males emerge first. And the male fig wasps are special. They are often wingless. Sometimes they are blind. They are not built for the outside world. They are born inside the fig, live inside the fig, mate inside the fig, and usually die inside the fig. This is not a lifestyle. This is a subscription you cannot cancel. Their job is brutally simple. Find the females, mate, chew an exit tunnel through the fig wall, die. That's it. That is the male fig wasp career path. No hobbies, no travel, no LinkedIn. Just romance, construction work, and immediate retirement from being alive. Meanwhile, the females are preparing for the next chapter. They have wings, they have a future, well, sort of. Before they leave, they collect pollen from the male flowers inside the fig. The timing has to be almost perfect. The fig must produce pollen when the new female wasps are ready to leave. The females must escape before their short lives run out. Then they must fly away and find another receptive fig of the correct species. Not just any fig, the right fig. Because many fig trees and fig wasps have extremely specific relationships. One tree, one tiny wasp, one very weird evolutionary handshake. If she finds the wrong fig, bad news. If she arrives too early, bad news. If she arrives too late, bad news. If she cannot find a fig before she dies, also bad news, but at least the paperwork is short. This is not pollination. This is a timed escape room designed by a plant, and the wasp is 1 millimeter long. So next time you feel overwhelmed by emails, remember there is a tiny insect trying to locate the correct living flower bunker before her biological battery runs out. No pressure. Now, at this point, a very reasonable person may ask the question, wait, does this mean I have eaten wasps? And the answer is probably not in the way your brain is now screaming. First, many of the figs people buy in stores, especially many common cultivated varieties, do not need wasps to ripen. They can develop without pollination. So, no, every fig is not a crunchy wasp coffin. Please tell the internet to sit down. Second, even in figs that are pollinated by wasps, you are not biting into a tiny insect skeleton like a cereal surprise. If a wasp dies inside a fig, the fig's ripening process and enzymes help break down the remains until they are no longer recognizable as a wasp. The crunchy bits in figs are mostly seeds, not legs. Probably a sentence nobody wanted to need, but here we are. Still, the real story is somehow stranger than the myth, because the important part is not there might be a dead wasp in a fig. The important part is that for millions of years, figs and fig wasps have been locked in this bizarre partnership where a plant became a nursery, a tomb, a restaurant, a prison, and a matchmaking app for insects smaller than a sesame seed. And the fig tree is not passive in this story. The fig tree is running the building. It controls when the inner flowers are ready. It releases scents that help attract the right wasps. It provides the tiny chamber. It creates the conditions for this little insect civilization to begin, reproduce, and collapse inside its walls. A fig is not a fruit. A fig is a landlord. And like many landlords, it is involved in several morally confusing arrangements. But the wasp is not just a victim either. Without the wasp, many figs would not get pollinated. Without the fig, the wasp would have nowhere to reproduce. They are trapped together. Not as enemies, not exactly as friends, more like two weird business partners who cannot survive without each other, and definitely should have read the contract more carefully. And this is where it gets almost beautiful, because the whole thing sounds badly designed. A flower that hides itself from pollinators, a pollinator that destroys her own wings to enter, male insects born with no real future except making a hole in the wall, females racing against time to find the next sealed chamber, a fruit that is not a fruit, a funeral that becomes a nursery, a prison that becomes a doorway. This should not work, and yet it works so well that figs have become one of the most important plant groups in many ecosystems. Birds eat them, monkeys eat them, bats eat them, insects depend on them, forests can depend on their fruiting cycles, all because somewhere inside this soft little thing, a microscopic drama is happening that most people will never see. The fig looks calm from the outside. That is the trick. From the outside, nature often looks calm. A quiet tree, a sweet fruit, a small insect, a normal afternoon. But zoom in far enough, and everything is fighting, negotiating, sacrificing, escaping, failing, adapting, and somehow continuing. Life is not clean. It is not elegant. It is not always optimized. Sometimes survival is a tiny wasp crawling into a door that destroys her wings. Sometimes parenthood is dying inside a flower cave. Sometimes success is being born blind, chewing a tunnel for your sisters, and never seeing the sky yourself. And sometimes the thing you thought was dessert turns out to be an entire civilization with terrible lighting. So no, the fig is not just a fruit. It is a locked room full of flowers, a nursery with a body count, a sweet little monument to one of nature's strangest deals. And the next time you see a fig sitting quietly on a plate, remember that innocent little fruit has seen things.